We're in the middle of a terrible epidemic. Many people around the world are suffering grief, loss, and death. Most of us find our lives on pause, reflecting on what really matters. But when it comes down to it, our biggest enemy is death itself. So on this Easter Sunday, I'm asking, what if we didn't have to fear death? There seem to be some who don't. You may have heard of the Italian priest who insisted on sitting with those dying of coronavirus, comforting them in their last hours, and eventually dying of the infection himself. He was faithfully imitating Jesus, who said,
"I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep."
But of course, it's not only priests who are putting themselves at risk to care for others. Many medical and key workers are also risking their lives in this epidemic. And their willingness to give themselves for others follows a similar pattern, because according to the Bible, Jesus willingly gave his life for our benefit.
Jesus became like us and shared our human nature. He did this so that through his death he might destroy the devil, who has the power over death, and in this way set free those who were slaves all their lives because of their fear of death.
That's great, you might think, but how does it help that Jesus died, however selflessly? The early Christians were convinced that Jesus not only died and was buried, but that he rose bodily from the grave. And they weren't idiots, but there were hundreds of eyewitnesses who unsurprisingly couldn't stop talking about what they'd seen and even gave up their lives defending their belief. Christian faith hangs on this one extraordinary claim, and even the Bible agrees, if it's not true, faith is pointless.
If Christ has not been raised from death, then we have nothing to preach, and you have nothing to believe.
But if this claim is true, then we don't need to fear death. As a human being, Jesus took all the selfishness, hatred, anger, and evil that was thrown at him. He literally took hell and all its venom into himself until there was no evil left to be thrown at him. As a human being, he died. But as God, his life could not be overcome.
Jesus said, "Don't be afraid. I am the living one. I was dead, but now I am alive forever and ever. I have authority over death and the world of the dead."
That's why we can live free of the fear of death. The early Christians understood that after they died, they would follow in the footsteps of Jesus, resting in death and then being raised from the dead to share in God's new world. They had an amazing vision.
Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth. I heard a loud voice speaking. Now God's home is with people. He will wipe away all tears from their eyes. There will be no more death, no more grief or crying or pain. The old things have disappeared. Then God said, "And now I make all things new."
So if you're watching this and you're not quite sure what you think about Jesus, why not try praying to him? After all, if there is a God who's powerful enough to overcome death, this God has power to comfort those who grieve, strengthen those offering care, even stop the virus itself. So why don't we ask him to?